Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor
And me, Jake, not from State Farm.
gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. Today is Monday, January 10th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I've built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games, is available in the Google Sheet that is linked in the show's description. Picks that get an A are the ones I love, picks that get a B are the ones I like, and picks that get a C are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Please subscribe if you aren't already. And for those of you on YouTube, leave a comment about the play you like the most or the one you think we might be wrong on. We had the weekend off, Jake. So just to go back to that last episode, we went a little long Friday. We covered some Friday games and we previewed some Saturday games, but I feel like we kind of nailed it.
We were right on the Saturday.
Yeah, we were right on those, and there were so many games Saturday. It feels like a long time ago, but we gave you Friday night, we gave you Ohio. That was a winner. Marquette, that was an easy winner. Yeah. We differed on Xavier Butler. Jake, you nailed that one. But my two A picks in Rapid Fire in New Orleans and Holy Cross won. Yeah. And then the Saturday games we previewed, I feel like I kind of nailed the Big 12 handicaps, right? Talking about how it's tough to win on the road in the Big 12.
Yeah, we're all over it. It was
and talked about Texas having a lot of talent, but it being tough to play there, and that was kind of the difference maker. And that was where I was kind of on the fence there. And Texas struggled on the road there. I talked about that earlier in the week, and Texas is a tough team to figure out. We talked about them a lot so far already, right? They have a lot of talent. They're young. They're trying to figure out who they are, their identity, et cetera. And they've had some tough road games there.
They've played a tough schedule, and they go up and down. They're very inconsistent, which kind of makes sense with them not playing together. But it was just you can't figure it out. And I guess Andrew Jones or whatever, he was coming back from that COVID. He played okay, but didn't play a lot. I guess he must have had it bad. And I know he was a cancer survivor, so he was probably real worried about that whole thing.
And then we nailed the LSU at Tennessee, right? We talked about how LSU should be, we kind of both said 4-5, favorite, but they might run away with it. And of course, they were a real short favorite, about 2 points. That was easy money there. So we did really well in that Friday episode. We're going to try to do it again today. We did have that Wisconsin Maryland game Sunday. I think you wanted to chat about just because apparently that got really wild.
That was just a fun game to watch. At first watching it, you think Maryland is just not going to have it because Maryland's schedule has done them zero favors so far with this little opening Big 12 or Big 10 run that they're going on. It's rough, but Wisconsin jumps out to 21 and Johnny Davis has got 11. So you're thinking, all right, this is a bag. And Ayala hasn't scored. It's done. Then all of a sudden the second half happens. Johnny Davis has a bad game, for him. He still ends up with 19, but when you've been putting up 30, that's bad. And Ayala catches fire, ends up going with 19. They had I forget the big guy's name, but the big guy started playing, and Tyler Wall disappeared for Wisconsin, and Maryland comes all the way back and is I think it had 3, and then that teeter-totters back and all the way till Wisconsin goes ahead 1, and Brad Davidson at the free throw, they foul Wisconsin's best shooter at the free throw line. It's a 1-point game. He misses the first, and Wisconsin calls a timeout. And I love the fact that Wisconsin's coach did this. They got Brad Davidson to miss it on purpose on the second because in that scramble, you can't get a good. Well, there's 3 seconds left. You can't get it off. You can't get to where you need to be. So I don't think he planned to miss the first one, but when they miss the second one, I was at this is kind of off topic, but I love when coaches do that because I was at a Pacers game the other night, and when there was 2 seconds left, it was a Golden State game, and Golden State's inbounding it, and they can't get it in. They're out of timeout, so all he does is lob it into a group of people and make sure somebody touches it, and the clock goes out, and the Pacers lose by 1. It was incredible. It's just brilliant coaching, and more coaches need to play the clock and rather than scramble and try to draw up a play.
Yep. It makes sense. Moving on to Monday games here. The slate is a little weak with regards to the quality of play. There's not a lot of real exciting matchups, but I think that lends the opportunity to make a little more money than usual because I think there's a lot of mismatches here, a lot of games that, odds makers maybe don't know the teams as well. So there's some edges here we're going to point out with regards to spread and totals today as well. So 5 games for you, then a couple of the buzzer beaters. 5 o'clock, Wofford at UNC Greensboro. The model thinks Wofford should be only about a 1.5 favorite with a total of 129. So I've got both a B play on Greensboro +3. I'll take that field goal there. And over 122.5. It's a solid differential there on that over. The overs have been doing really well the last few weeks. And so I'm going to start mentioning those and kind of ride those. Jake, what is your take on this one?
See, I like Wofford. They've got some experience coming back from a couple of years where they've been I think they've won the conference 2 of the last 3 years or something like that. And they're a very solid team. They've got some experience, and I don't believe in UNC Greensboro. They haven't shown me anything this year of value. So I'm leaning Wofford. But
I'm hoping that home court matters a little bit more. But you're right; it should be a good close game. It's one of the more interesting games. Every other game I think we're going to really dive into has double digit, or should be a double digit spread at least, in my opinion, in the model's opinion. So that one should be a good close game where it could just come down to at the end exactly which way the ball bounces. But definitely like the over in that game. So it's a good way to lean there, in my opinion. 6 p.m. Bucknell at Loyola, Maryland. I've got both an A pick and an over on this one. The model thinks it should be Loyola, Maryland -10. So I've got an A pick on them -7. The total is 142.5. So I'm taking over on that because I think it should be 146. My model's forward when backing Loyola, Maryland this season. And so I'm going to trust that happens again here tonight. Jake, what is your opinion?
Loyola, Maryland is a solid team. They've played a decent schedule, especially for them. They've came through several times, and Bucknell's rough, and they're just it's not good. And so I believe that Loyola, Maryland will be 10, 12 points ahead. I think that's right around where it finishes. So the 7 is an easy lay.
Yep. I like it. I just remember last year with the weirdness of all the makeup games and conferences scrambling. I don't know if you remember this, right? But you had the conferences scrambling where it's like half your conference is out, the other half can play. So let's do these last minute games. I think Loyola, Maryland and Lafayette played like 7 times last year. It's like every time, it was like every other day, it seemed like those two teams were playing. And I'll just never forget how wonky that was. And that's what we're talking about next. Actually, Lafayette, also at 6 p.m. is home to a surprisingly good Navy team, a Navy team that my model has kind of disrespected going along, but my model's really coming around to them now. Navy playing pretty well on the season. I've got an A pick for you there. Navy -7.5. The model thinks it should be 10. When I have backed Navy, I'm 5-1. When I've backed Lafayette, I'm 1-6. So it's pretty clear who do you want to back, right? You want to back Navy on this game because they've been good to us. Lafayette has not been good to us. So I just don't think personally that Lafayette is in the same class as Navy. I know they're home, but I just think they get run out of their own building here. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm in the same opinion. Lafayette can't practice with this team. It's just not even good. Navy went to Virginia and won Virginia first game of the year, and then after that they haven't stopped. They run through they are a very slow, methodical team, and it plays extremely good defense. And in the way Lafayette plays, slow and turns the ball over a lot, it just plays right into Navy's hands. It's going to be 10, 15, maybe more, but Navy is the side to be at. And you're going to hear some arguments saying Lafayette beat Rutgers, but Rutgers had the worst night of the year. Their 2 best players went 6 of 30 or something crazy like that. They just had the worst night of the year, and Lafayette pulled off a 2-point win. But I think that was a blind squirrel finding a nut, because that was one of their 3 wins on the season, and the other one being a Division III school.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point you make there, right? You have to look through. I've heard it said with college basketball in a normal year. This year, you may not get to 30 games, right? But in a normal year, you get to 30 games. I've heard it said you're going to play 5 games way over your head, 5 games where you look awful, and about 20 where you look normal. And the key is figuring out which 5 are which, right? And so kind of like you talked about that Lafayette. Yeah, they had the Rutgers one. That was one of their 5 amazing games. Just happened to be paired up with one of Rutgers' 5 awful games. As opposed to Navy, who's consistently been good, right? So it's one of those things where early in the season, you have to look at that and try to assess and decide for yourself is this team for real and this is how good they are, or is this just kind of one of those good games, one of those bad games? So overreact to the good or the bad. If you can help us, that's something just to think about there, that Lafayette, with one impressive win, but Navy is just overall just a much more solid team.
They're very consistent, and Lafayette's inconsistent. So you take the right side of the consistency there.
Right. We've got 2 SWAT games for you here. We joked a week ago here. We were, my model was 4-0 on the SWAC. So we're going to talk a couple SWAT games here. 7:30 p.m. Arkansas Pine Bluff at Prairie View A&M. I've got a B pick on Prairie View A&M minus 11.5. The model thinks it should be 13.5, and I'm taking over 150. As the model thinks it should be 151. For the model to peg it at 151, that's a large number. So I'm comfortable taking over 150 because the model tends to try to regress towards the mean. It's not going to throw out those crazy high numbers very often. But this should be a fun game with that high total. You don't see totals that high often. I think it'll still go over. And Prairie View, winless on the season, but I think they can get their first win of the season easily here against a truly terrible bottom 5 team in Pine Bluff. Jake, what's your opinion here?
Yeah, I'm with you on Prairie View. It seems to me that they get their first win of the year. I mean, some of these small schools, when you're getting in the first 10, 12 games, they've played a lot of larger talent to make the payroll, right? So you can't really knock them for being you can knock them for being winless, but for having a big number of losses is they may not have really played the same level of talent that they're carrying, but this Arkansas Pine Bluff team is just bad. Very bad. Everything they do is the opposite of what you should do in basketball, and it's just going to be. I think Prairie View is going to win and cover this number very easily, but I'm surprised you're taking the over on that. That's a high.
It's a high number. It's a high number, and that's why I said I think I'm just my confidence comes from the fact that the model's not usually going to throw a number that high. So if it does, I'm thinking let's just roll with it, right?
You got to trust the system.
You got to trust the process, right? Yeah. Speaking of bad teams, the worst. Probably still, I guess, Mississippi Valley State did get a win. So kudos to them. That was a brilliant effort this weekend to beat Prairie View as I think 19-point underdogs. So heck of a win for them. They're traveling to Texas Southern, a Texas Southern team who's one of the favorites to come out of the SWAC. Texas Southern is an 18.5-point favorite. That's an A pick for me. My model makes it 26. I mean, that is an insane difference here. I know that Mississippi Valley State got that win. I don't know if I don't know anything about any of the players or anything, but I mean, I can imagine being a little hungover emotionally from that. Now having to go on the road to play a Texas Southern team. I think Texas Southern just runs them out of the building here. Yeah. What's your take?
Yeah, Texas Southern is a decent team. They're not. I mean, the SWAC conference is rough, but the Texas, don't let that shade Texas Southern. They're a decent team. They'll probably be one of those real high double-digit seeds, 16, 15 or something, and just get blown out. But they're not that bad. And this Mississippi Valley State team was just found a like I said, blind squirrel found the nut against. Because it took them to overtime to get the win too, so it wasn't like they had a handle on the game. But so, and that's another reason to kind of pick Prairie View A&M, right? They're going to be mad. They're going to come out.
There you go. Yeah, got to get that first win. Exactly. I've got 3 buzzer beaters for you. 3 more A picks at 5 p.m. Colgate, 7.5-point favorites against Army. Army's played pretty well, and Colgate's been a little disappointing, but again, you're playing numbers, not teams. I think the numbers right here, as scary as it is, I'm going to trust the process there on Colgate. 7 p.m. South Dakota is a 5.5-point road favorite at North Dakota. That's another A pick for me. And the last A pick, Kansas City at 7 p.m. is a 10-point home favorite versus Omaha. The model is penalizing UMKC for their layoff and still thinks that they run Omaha out of the building. So I've got those 3 extra A picks for you there. And that's all we've got.
One of those bottom feeders.
Omaha, yes, exactly.
Omaha's one of the bottom feeders. It's just
they did play fairly well. I think they got a win this weekend. Same sort of thing, right? Maybe they're a little hungover from that over performance this weekend. But that's all we got for you today. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder to check out the Google Sheet for all the picks and totals for today's games. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button for a new episode every weekday of the college basketball season. We will see you tomorrow. And until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.